All right, let's jump into a deep dive today. We're talking about something that, well, it touches all our lives, often without us even realizing its full power: music. You know that feeling, right? Maybe you're feeling a bit low, you put on a favorite song, maybe sing along a bit, even just in your head, and suddenly things feel a little lighter, a bit better.
Yeah, that immediate shift, it's almost instinctive for many of us.
Exactly. And what the source material we're looking at today shows is that this isn't just, a coincidence. There's real science behind it. It actually points to clinical studies showing music can cut down anxiety by pretty significant amounts. I think one study mentioned up to 65%. It really frames music as this accessible, um, powerful tool for mental well-being.
It really is. And it feels so timely, too.
It does, right? I noticed looking at recent search trends like late May 2025, terms like music therapy benefits, music and anxiety, healing power of music, music for stress relief, even just mental health tips. They're all trending pretty high.
Shows a real global curiosity, doesn't it?
Yeah,
People are actively looking for this connection.
definitely. So, our mission for this deep dive, using the sources we have, is to really get into the specifics, to understand how music does what it does for our mental health. From the brain science right down to practical everyday uses. Think of this as your shortcut to grasping how music can be, well, profound support for your mind.
And what's really striking, I think, digging into the material, is that this link between music and healing,
Mm,
it isn't new, not at all. Our sources show its roots go way, way back across history, across cultures,
right.
which I think sets a fascinating stage for understanding the modern research we're seeing now.
That's a fantastic point. So, like, way before we had brain imaging or modern medicine, humans were already using music for healing, for comfort. Can you walk us through some of that ancient connection the material highlights?
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize this. Music was woven into healing practices for centuries all over the globe. It wasn't just entertainment, it was functional. They mentioned examples like um, shamans using rhythmic chanting in rituals, or think about monks and Gregorian chants finding solace, focus through sound.
Wow, okay, so integral parts of their culture's approaches to well-being.
Exactly. And think about something as, well, universal as a lullaby. Almost every culture has them, right? Gentle, rhythmic songs to soothe infants. That fundamental human instinct to use music for comfort. It points to this deep psychological power, a power that existed long, long before science could put numbers on it. Modern research is kind of catching up, really validating these ancient intuitions.
Okay, so the intuition was there. Now we have the science. What is actually happening inside our heads when we listen to music? What leads to these, measurable effects on mood and anxiety? Let's unpack that neuroscience.
Right, and this is where the sources get really compelling with data. We're seeing clinical findings. Things like music therapy studies showing reductions in anxiety symptoms up to 70%.
70%, that's huge.
It is. And depression symptoms reduced by maybe 60% in some studies. These aren't just minor tweaks, it's validated research showing real therapeutic potential.
So how does it work? What's the mechanism?
Well, it's complex, but a key part is how music affects our stress response. Listening to calming music, say, for just 30 minutes a day, has been shown to actually lower levels of cortisol.
Cortisol, the main stress hormone.
Exactly. But beyond that, music triggers the release of several really crucial neurotransmitters. Basically, our brain's own internal chemical messengers.
Ah, the personal pharmacy idea the source mentioned. Which chemicals are we talking about?
Precisely. So there's dopamine, you probably know that one, often linked to pleasure, the reward system.
The feel-good chemical.
That's the one. Then there's serotonin, which is vital for regulating mood. It's really key in tackling symptoms of depression. And also oxytocin.
The bonding hormone, right?
It's sometimes called that. It fosters feelings of trust, connection, really important for combating isolation. Music basically cues your brain to release this beneficial cocktail.
So it's a whole cascade of effects, not just one thing. And the sources also said music isn't processed in just one little part of the brain.
That's right. It engages a whole network. Obviously, the auditory cortex is busy processing the sound itself. But crucially, it connects deeply with the limbic system.
Our emotional center.
Exactly. That's why music can stir up such strong feelings, even memories. And it also interacts with the prefrontal cortex that's involved in higher stuff, like decision-making and, importantly, regulating our mood.
Okay, so it's lighting up multiple areas.
And what's particularly fascinating, and the sources really highlight this, is music's role in neuroplasticity.
Ah, the brain changing itself.
Yes, the brain's amazing ability to rewire itself. This is proving super valuable in therapy, helping recovery and processing for people dealing with PTSD or trauma. That widespread brain engagement seems key to music's broad impact.
That neuroplasticity connection is genuinely amazing. It starts to make sense then how music can influence our mental state so powerfully. And the sources mentioned different states linked to different brainwaves, like how music can make you feel focused versus totally chilled out.
Precisely. Our brain activity creates these electrical patterns, brainwaves, and they change depending on our mental state. You've got alpha waves that are associated with being relaxed, calm.
Okay.
Beta waves are more about alertness, concentration. Theta waves pop up during creativity or meditative states. And delta waves are linked to deep sleep.
So music can influence these.
Yeah, the idea is called brainwave entrainment. Essentially, rhythmic external stimuli like music can kind of nudge your brainwaves towards a certain state. And this isn't just theory. There are studies like one mentioned in the source material about workplace stress showing music interventions cut perceived stress scores by 50%. That's a direct, measurable impact.
50% reduction in workplace stress, just from music.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. Okay, so given all this science, how does this translate into, like, formal music therapy? Is that fundamentally different from me just putting on my favorite playlist when I'm stressed?
It is quite different, yes. The sources are really clear on this. Music therapy is a clinical, structured approach. It's delivered by certified professionals. It's not just casual listening.
Okay.
They use this analogy, physiotherapy for your emotions, which I think captures it quite well. Therapists tailor specific musical experiences, listening, playing, even writing, to meet individual therapeutic goals.
Physiotherapy for emotions. I like that. So it's not just listening passively.
No, not necessarily. It involves various techniques, yes, receptive methods like guided listening, but also active music making, maybe playing simple instruments, singing. Even songwriting can be used for emotional expression.
Songwriting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And improvisation, too, which can help process feelings more spontaneously. It's a structured approach used for a really wide range of challenges mentioned in the sources, things like anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, dementia, autism spectrum disorder, even chronic pain.
That's a broad scope.
It is. The therapist is a skilled guide, using music as their main tool within that specific therapeutic relationship. And the sources also suggest it works well when integrated with other things like mindfulness or CBT for a more holistic benefit.
Right, a multi-pronged approach. Okay, so that's the clinical side. But for someone listening now thinking, how can I use this? How can they take this knowledge and apply it in their own life? What are some practical ways the sources suggest using music for day-to-day well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. The sources offer a lot of actionable ideas. For stress relief, for instance, a simple start is just creating a calming playlist. Think soft instrumentals, maybe nature sounds, ambient stuff.
Okay, simple enough.
Even just setting aside 15, maybe 30 minutes a day for dedicated listening. Not just background noise, can help lower that cortisol. You could try guided music meditations, plenty of those available online, or use specific tracks as cues for deep breathing or stretching breaks. The material also mentions binaural beats as something to experiment with, though it notes that what works is often really personal. You have to try things out.
Experimentation seems key. What about for mood or dealing with emotions?
Music is a fantastic ally there. Use uplifting tracks deliberately when you need a boost. Or, conversely, turn to more cathartic music when you need to sit with or process difficult feelings. Sometimes just singing along at the top of your lungs or even trying to jot down some thoughts to a melody can help articulate things you can't quite name otherwise.
Getting it out, basically.
Exactly. For focus or concentration, like for deep work, instrumental music, or maybe those binaural beats can help some people. But importantly, the sources add a caveat here. The science is still developing. So again, experiment. See if it works for you. Don't force it if it's distracting.
Got it. And sleep. That's a big one for many people.
Yes. For sleep and relaxation, the advice is pretty clear. Stick to slow tempo, ambient, or instrumental music before bed. Avoid anything with prominent lyrics or energetic rhythms close to bedtime that's likely to keep you awake, not help you drift off.
Makes sense. Keep it calm.
And then there's motivation. That's where upbeat music really shines. Use energetic tracks for workouts, getting through chores, breaking through a creative block. Let the rhythm kind of set your pace and energy level.
Yeah, I definitely use music for workouts.
Most people do. And finally, don't forget the social side. Sharing musical experiences, going to concerts, singing with friends, even just sharing playlists. It fosters belonging, reduces isolation. Group activities like sing-alongs or dance parties, they tap into that innate human need for connection. And that's incredibly healing in itself.
Those are all fantastic, really practical starting points. Thanks. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, are there any important things to keep in mind? Any, like, potential downsides or best practices to make sure we're using music effectively and safely for mental health?
Yes, the sources raise a few key considerations. First, and this is probably the most important, individual preference. Music is so personal.
Right. What I find relaxing might drive someone else crazy.
Exactly. What
Mm.
works for one person might be irritating or distracting for another.
Mm.
You really have to experiment. Different genres, tempos, even settings like headphones versus speakers. Find what resonates with your mood and goals.
Okay, personalize it. What else?
Also, think about active versus passive listening. Just having music on in the background might have some subtle effects, sure, but actively engaging, really listening, singing along, maybe even playing an instrument, thinking about the lyrics that can significantly deepen the therapeutic benefits.
So paying attention matters.
It does. On the flip side, though, be mindful of overstimulation.
Hmm.
Constant music or music played really loud can actually be counterproductive for some people. It can increase stress rather than reduce it. So give your ears and your brain some quiet breaks, too.
Good point. Don't overdo it.
And this one is absolutely critical, something the sources strongly emphasize. Music is a powerful complement to mental health care. It is not a replacement for professional help.
That's really important to stress.
Hugely. If you are struggling with significant mental health challenges, please reach out to a qualified therapist or counselor. Music is a fantastic tool in the toolkit, but it might not be the whole toolbox you need. It supports treatment. It doesn't replace it.
A vital distinction. Anything else?
Just reinforcing that point about genre and tempo, use them strategically. Understand how different types of music tend to affect your mood and energy. Choose accordingly, but also be ready to adapt based on how you're actually feeling in that moment.
Be flexible. Okay, that distinction between complement and substitute feels so crucial. So bringing this all together then, it's really clear our relationship with music is, well, much deeper than just entertainment, isn't it? It's a genuine tool for mental well-being.
Absolutely. A profound one.
We've seen how far back these ideas go, like through ancient cultures. And now modern science is validating these effects on our stress hormones, neurotransmitters, even our brainwaves. From cutting down anxiety to helping with sleep, focus, connecting with others, the range of benefits is pretty wide. It totally makes sense why people are searching online for ways to bring music into their mental health routines.
It really does. And I think the core takeaway from the material is really an encouragement. Make music a conscious, active part of your journey towards mental well-being. Don't just let it be wallpaper sound. Engage with it. Curate playlists for different needs, explore genres you normally wouldn't touch, maybe even try making some music yourself, however simple. Your brain, your emotional state, they'll thank you for it.
Yeah, be intentional about it.
Exactly. And as the research keeps going, the picture of music's healing power just gets clearer and clearer. It is finally getting the serious attention it deserves. The future definitely sounds, well, harmonious.
I like that. So the next time you press play, just remember, you're not just listening. According to these sources, you're actually engaging a pretty powerful pathway towards healing and well-being.
Well said.
It really is fascinating to think how something so simple, so, everywhere, connects back to ancient human practices and a really complex neuroscience. And it makes you wonder, given how incredibly personal music is, how it gets tangled up with our specific memories, our identities, big life moments. Does its healing power maybe tap into that unique individual landscape too? Does it connect with our personal history and sense of self in ways science is only just starting to figure out?
That's a really interesting thought to leave people with.
Something to ponder. We definitely encourage you, after listening to this deep dive, to explore your own relationship with music. Experiment, listen intentionally, and see what you discover about its power in your own life.